Hey, hey, welcome to another recording of Invincible You. This is recording number 4. We have a guest in the studio with us today. We have the lovely Alison Harris. Welcome, Alison.
Hi, nice to be here, Kevin.
Thank you so much for coming back and doing this second recording with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Very welcome.
Just so as people know who you are and why you're relevant to this Invincible You season, tell people what you do.
So I'm a wellbeing coach or a
Yep.
wellness coach. I don't mind whichever you call me. It's the same thing. So I use NLP and I'm a nutritional therapist as well. So the two things are really what I use to help people in that are stuck with various aspects of their life in terms of their well-being. I do it on a one-to-one basis, and when we're not in lockdown, I also do workshops and group support too. So in corporate settings and privately, that's what I do.
Brilliant. We talked briefly off of the recording about your last year. So you're still working, you're still delivering all of the stuff that you were delivering before. The current situation hasn't stopped you from delivering, has it?
Not at all, no. And I think certainly in the corporate settings that I work in, when we went into this situation, I was told, we need you more than ever now. And
Yeah.
I think that's been the case, particularly for one-to-ones,
Yeah.
supporting people through this experience.
Yeah.
As much as, other things that might be going on in their lives, it's harder to deal with other stuff when we're in the middle of a pandemic. So yes, I've been lucky enough to be able to continue working and supporting people.
Brilliant. You're quite right there. It's been a very it's been a very particular year, and like you said, it feels like people are struggling more now than ever. And I've been saying for the last year, now more than ever, we need to be looking at exercise and nutrition and meditation and all of those practices that we may have been avoiding a little bit, and stepping into them, and just to help us through this current time.
You're right, and I think not just helping us through this time, but beyond as well. If
Yeah.
this isn't
Yeah.
a wake up call to building resilience,
Yeah.
emotional resilience, as well as taking care of our physical health, then I don't know what is. So
Yeah.
and I say to people on the back of that, we've all suffered a great deal in the last year, and so this can't be for nothing. Don't
Yeah.
let this be for nothing. Let's move forward and really focus much more on our health and well-being than we've ever done before.
Yeah.
And that will stand us in good stead for whatever gets thrown at us next.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I've been kind of trying to get across to people this. For me, this is a period of growth. We get a choice right now, and since last March, of surviving the situation or thriving through the situation, and just growing through it. And I know for a lot of people, surviving is just about all they can do. But we as practitioners, we gently encourage, come on, we can just do that a little bit more. We can do this.
Yeah, definitely. And it is, you're right, thriving is the word going forward. And it may have been that as you say, people are surviving through this, and it will end. So what do we do with it then? What's next? What do we do? How can we go forward and do things better? We weren't in a great state before the pandemic, to be honest.
No.
In terms of health and well-being, we were not in a great place.
No.
So we mustn't forget that. We don't want to go back. We want to move forward.
Absolutely. Just for the listeners or for the viewers' information, how did you end up in this particular area of work? How did you end up in well-being?
Well, briefly, I was teaching in further education for many years. That's my former life, and it's now nearly 11 years ago. I had breast cancer, so that kind of came out of the blue. I thought I was very fit and healthy up to that point, and really that was my pause, if you like. That was my time to kind of think, what's going on here? And so I realized I was chronically stressed and had been for quite a long time, and that if I wanted to survive, my odds weren't great, then I needed to do something very different. So I began researching into nutrition and mindset and all sorts of things, stress reducing techniques, and became more and more interested, and eventually led me to train in both nutritional therapy and neuro-linguistic programming. I became a master practitioner and a coach. And so about 4 years ago, I decided to, it just blew my mind. I just thought, wow, there's so much that we can do here, you know. And so I left teaching, and after the training, I then set up in doing this myself, because I just wanted to share this with other people, and help other people before they go through the crisis that that I went through.
Yeah. And it's strange that sometimes people need that crisis to go through before they can really see how important their mental health is. And I can't get past what. It's strange because the words in my head then, what an amazing experience, and I don't mean amazing experience, but what an experience to happen in terms of waking you up in terms of, this is my health and this is real. What a threat to have. And we say it all the time that there is no greater threat than having your life threatened like that. There just isn't. And it really is a point of, okay, so what am I going to do about this? So, but it just feels like you've taken it and run with it and gone, right, we are turning this around.
Yeah, I now regard it as a gift, actually, and that does seem strange to a lot of people, but I do. It was my wake-up call and my gift, and thankfully I was able to come out the other end, and when I look now, I mean, my life is so much less stressful. I get so much more out of life than I did before. So we have a choice. We do one or two things with it, don't we? So that was what I chose to do.
Yeah, it just sounds like amazing, and I love that you see it now as a gift, because that's exactly how I would see it moving forward. Everything's a little gift. But again, that's a choice. So I have a question for you, and the question is, so again, this is to help people understand this term. How would you define the word nutrition?
I would say nutrition is nourishment. And what I mean by that is up until after my illness, I did what many people do, and I know they do this because I've done enough work with people to know, and that is, we do not connect food with nourishment and medicine anymore. We eat for many reasons. We don't consciously, most people don't consciously eat and think, this is going to renew my cells, repair my body, give me the energy I need. We eat for pleasure, we eat for social reasons, we eat for loads and loads of different reasons. So nutrition can be quite a sciencey word, and we can get into the vitamins and minerals and micronutrients, all that sort of thing. However, forget that. It's about nourishing your body, giving your body what it needs and the environment it needs to be able to renew, repair, and energize.
Yeah. I guess you could look at it in the same way that if you had a beautiful Lamborghini outside, would you really put cheap oil inside it, or would you give it really good oil?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. It's the good stuff that you put in, and that's why I love the word nourishment. And I the NLP is the nourishment of the mind. Nutrition is nourishment for the mind and the body. I mean, it can't separate the two. It's just the language that we use, but it's nourishment for the mind, the body, and the soul.
Yeah, absolutely. When you said the word nourishment, my mind flitted off to kind of like self-nourishment in terms of, I talked recently on a recording about massaging your hands with hand cream, but like really, really massaging your hands and going in between and doing your little nails. And there's something very self-compassionate about that, which is nourishment for the body. And that's definitely nourishment for the soul when we touch ourselves like that, for example.
Yes. And that connection with food as medicine, or food as nourishment, is all about self-care, self-compassion, self-love. That's at the root of it all. Absolutely. And we for many people, they haven't made that connection, and I didn't make it for a very long time. And as you say, with the Lamborghini analogy, you know, if you really love that Lamborghini, you will do your best to nourish it. And we forget to do that for ourselves. We've lost, many people have lost that connection, and so it's bringing that back. It's nourishment is about self-love. It's about self-care.
I find it interesting that, and I'm not sure whether you get this with the people you work with, that there's more chance that we would nourish the Lamborghini than we would ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And oh yes, very much so. And it's interesting, isn't it, when I have, particularly when my clients are parents, and they talk about providing nourishment for their children, or, you know, I remember a client who had stopped nourishing herself once her children had left home. She didn't see the value in it.
Oh wow.
So yeah, isn't that interesting? So we think about, you know, when we're providers and we're providing for our partners or our kids or our dogs or whatever it might be, we're thinking about nourishing them, but we don't start with ourselves.
Yeah. Sometimes with clients, and I'm honest when I do this, I use their children as a way into themselves.
Oh, so me too.
I kind of, it's a little bit of a bargaining chip. I'm like, so you want to feed your children healthy, nutritious food, do you? Or you want to take them on exercise, or you want to teach them how to regulate their system, whatever it is. So you have to lead by example. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But it is a great way in, because their kids are the thing they love the most. So
yes. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Often more than themselves. Often. Why for you? And again, I'm asking this question because it feels like something that we know happens, but I'm not entirely sure we know why it happens. Why for you are we so drawn to sugar and fat? Why because we are, aren't we? We love them. We just love sugar and fat.
It's a very complex issue, but I think to keep it sort of, basically, I think two main reasons. And one is that for sugar particularly, we've learned to give sugar, or to see sugar as a treat.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we you know, we bake a cake, or we give a cake to somebody that for a birthday, you know, and for Christmas, and we give children sweets for a treat. So we've already made that mindset link between sugar and treat, and which is okay. The problem is those treats are now daily things. They're not treats once a week or whatever. So I think that's first thing. I think that particularly around sugar, then we've made that link between that and treats. And the other thing is that both of those things provide energy for us. Those are our main energy sources, sugar and fats. And we need energy, you know, and so we're drawn to those things to give us energy. And when we are stressed, we're in fight or flight mode. So the body is saying, give us lots of energy. We need energy. We're going to have to run from a saber-toothed tiger, or we're going to have to hide from this warring tribe, or whatever, because still that's what's going on in our mind, in our brains. So what do we need? We need energy. And, you know, stress is long-term stress, chronic stress depletes our energy. So then we crave more of it. And so there is this cycle, so that there's a real kind of craving for those things when we're feeling not just stressed, but when we're feeling depressed or down or anxious or sad. Those are all depleting energies in the body. You know, we're all made up of energy, and so those deplete us. So we are naturally, our survival mechanism kicks in and says, give us energy quickly now, we need it now. And so we crave those things very often. These are often linked to the comfort foods. So you know, that's the reason why we crave those things.
I remember doing some training with somebody probably about 7-8 years ago now, and I think she had ME Is ME the one that you can recover from?
Well, you can, yeah, or it can be.
Long term.
It could certainly be very long term, yeah, but you
Okay.
can.
And because of her illness, she'd gotten very into nutrition and all of the rest of it. And I remember her using this phrase that sugar was the cocaine of our present time. And I remember hearing her saying, going, "Oh, that's a bit harsh." And actually, 8 years on, I look at it and go, "Yeah, she was probably right. It's very, very addictive, and
Yes.
oh my goodness, it's so unhealthy for us. Yet the body
It's
craves it."
it's so toxic. I
Yeah.
mean, I've heard it said that if it was invented now, in terms of the way we eat sugar, added sugar, processed sugar,
Hmm.
it would be a banned substance
Yeah.
because of the toxicity on the body. And that actually reminds me of a third reason why, and that is that it messes with our metabolism. Sugar absolutely messes with our metabolism, and so it tricks the body into believing that it needs it.
Yeah.
And we absolutely do. It gives us no value whatsoever. Added sugar, and I'm making the distinction between added sugar and things like fruit sugars.
Yeah.
Added sugar, the white stuff that's put into food, is of absolutely no value whatsoever. We do not need it at all. It is incredibly toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a question for you, and I'm going to ask this question because this is not one that's written down. I'm throwing this one at you.
Oh, okay.
I think you'll be fine with it. So I'm asking it. I think I know what the answer is, but I'm asking it because I think other people might experience this, but then get confused by it. If I have an afternoon nap, which I often do because I quite often start work at 8 and then finish at 8, so at some point I'll have what I call a nanny nap. When I wake up, and so the nanny nap can be like 5-10 minutes, that's it, and I'm done. 15 tops. I almost, usually I'm in the middle of a fast, but I go to the cupboard in the kitchen where the treat stuff might be, and I just need sugar. I just desperately need sugar. So what's my body saying to me at that point? What's happened to my body? Why at that point do I feel like I would rip somebody's hand off just to get some chocolate?
Well, it may be that your blood sugar levels have dipped.
Yeah.
So, and because that's the other thing, sugar does that, it gives you the spike of sugar, and then we have the drop. And of course, this obviously is what leads to type 2 diabetes. So our insulin levels are having to try and work, our pancreas rather is having to work so hard at providing the insulin to bring the blood sugar down. And then we raise it again, and then it works really hard, and then it stops working very well. So, we end up with type 2 diabetes. So it may be that after you've had a nap, your blood sugar is low.
Yeah.
And so, you feel the need. And the other thing is that when you open the cupboard, your eyes will then, your visual stimulus will kick in, and you will see the treats. And we don't crave stuff if it's not there, or we're less likely to. So the visual stimulus will also give you that, and your mind will be tricked into thinking you need it. You use the word need and need it. Well, we can get that energy from other sources as well. We can get it from fats, because that's the other way we can get energy. And fats aren't the demon that they were made out to be, or we've been told to believe for the last 40 years. So, fats would be a much better source and would give you the raising your blood sugar level that you probably need in a sustained way. Particularly, when I say fats, but it could be fruit as well. It could be fruit sugars. So, but you can raise your blood sugar in such a way that it's gentle, and therefore it will sustain you for longer. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it really does. I kind of thought it was to do with blood sugar levels, and I come from a family where there's diabetes in the background, and I'm aware that it's there. So whenever I go through those kind of like those needy moments, I'm always like, yeah, it's around, but I manage it really well, and I'm not diabetic. But if somebody said at one point, you are diabetic, I wouldn't be at all surprised by that. Well, the way I counterbalance it, if I can stay away from the cupboard, if my motivation is on point, then if I drink like half a liter of water, that would usually do it. That would kill it.
And you know what, that and after I finished saying that, in my head I'm thinking, oh, and water and drink.
Yeah.
Because, so I'm really glad you said that, because you're absolutely right. Half the time when we think we need food, it's not. We're thirsty. We're not hungry. We're just thirsty, and the brain gets tricked into believing one or the other. And the other thing that sugar does is it we have hormones and chemicals that regulate whether we're full or whether we're hungry, and these can get disrupted too by sugar. So, it really just messes us up. It messes with our mind, sugar does.
There's so many, when you think about what you're saying there, there's so many levels to all of that. There's the visual stimulus. And even as you were talking, I was thinking, it's almost like unconsciously, my mind knows if there's something in that cupboard. It's like at the moment, what's in that cupboard? I know that there's half a bar of fruit and nut and some snacky crispy things. That's it. That's all that's in there. But my mind knows that they're in there. And it also knows that in my car, there's 2 uneaten Oreo little mini eggs. So I know that unconsciously. It's almost like my mind holds it and goes, you know what's in there. You know what's in there. You know it's there. So it's incredible. So there's the body signals, but then there's the mind. I love what you said about treats as well, and how we have created this really unhealthy association with treats. And also, whenever I've worked with people around nutrition and weight loss and stuff like that, we use this language of good and bad. And I'm like, we need to remove that language because it's so unhealthy for you.
Yeah,
can't say good foods, bad foods, or I just want something really bad. And I'm like, no, let's not do that. Comes from childhood, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it does. It's all that, downloaded program that we get before the age of 7 unconsciously, by very well-meaning people, very well-meaning culture. This isn't about blaming our parents. It's just what's happened in that downloaded program, and those beliefs that we learnt to believe before the age of 7, they're still in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question for you. How does good nutrition affect mental health, or the opposite? In terms of bad nutrition, how does bad nutrition affect our mental health? We know it does, but are there any really obvious key points that you could talk people through?
Sugar again. Sugar, when we have those fluctuations in blood sugar, it affects our moods. It really does. And there's lots of studies that have linked sugar to depression and anxiety, particularly. So because it changes the hormones that get released in our body, and the hormones are our emotions, they are our feelings. And so, unfortunately, sugar feeds those chemicals that make us feel bad. They make us feel sad or anxious or whatever. So again, I'm afraid, I know we're banging on about sugar, but that's the worst culprit. Processed foods too. There are studies that have linked processed foods. When I say processed foods, I mean unnatural foods. So things that if you look at a label on something and there's lots of things that you see that you don't recognize, it's processed food.
Yeah.
A lot of those chemicals that are in those foods have been linked to poor brain health and poor gut health. And our gut, the science around gut health is still fairly new, and we know that in our gut we have the equivalent of neurotransmitter. Well, we do have neurotransmitters. Serotonin, for instance, is made in the gut, not just gets released from the brain. So taking care of our gut's really a good idea. And again, sugar and the chemicals that are in some processed foods destroy our gut bacteria. So those, and I know it's more complicated than I understand, but it basically, it's about what neurotransmitters we have in our body, and it's about feeding the right ones and doing the opposite to the ones that we don't want. So the bad, if you want to use the word bad nutrition, is really simplistically, it's the sugar and the processed foods. And the opposite, of course, it's really simple. It's eating real food, mainly plants. And it doesn't matter what cultural foods you look at from around the world. It's the same thing. It's about eating real food. That's what our body recognizes. And that's then, if the body recognizes what we put in there, it can do things with the nutrients. So, I always say to people something that I learned a very long time ago, and people remember this because, again, it's a visual thing, is eating a rainbow. And if we eat a rainbow, then we are eating lots of vegetables, because vegetables come in lots of different colors, and some fruit. And we are also getting the range of nutrients that we need to feed these wonderful neurotransmitters. There's about 30 different ones, apparently, that we know of so far. Things like serotonin and dopamine. And these are the neurotransmitters that make us feel good. And we need to feed them.
Yeah.
And so feeding them with the variety of foods that provide all those different colors. Each different color has different nutrients in them, and we need that variety in order to provide that nourishment. And so it's around, it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter whether you're a vegetarian or a vegan or a keto or whatever various diets are in vogue at the moment. That's not what's important. What's important is eating real food, mainly plant-based. And that includes things like, excuse me, nuts and seeds, pulses, and something that we actually forget, unless we're a herbalist, that provides nourishment, and that is herbs and spices. We use them to make our food really tasty. And yet these are little gems. These are concentrated nutrients, the same as seeds. They are so full of nutrients that we just need a tiny amount. And, things like basil and oregano and cinnamon and chamomile and, I could go on. But anyway.
You're not going to mention turmeric.
Well,
it's so in vogue.
Well, do you know, it is, and for a very good reason. There has been a lot of research done on this, and it can't be ignored anymore. It's a wonderful, amazing thing, turmeric. But yes, it's really anti-inflammatory. That's the main thing about the active ingredient in turmeric is one of the best anti-inflammatories around.
Right.
And of course, we want to reduce inflammation in the body, both for our mind and our physical health. So anti-inflammatory foods are also key. B vitamins, anti-inflammatories, vitamin D is so linked to our mood, and of course that's quite problematic to get in foods, which is why vitamin D supplements are the one that's sort of mainly recommended in terms of supplementation. Because sunlight is our main source of vitamin D. But yeah, there are just so many foods, and it can get very boring if I start listing loads and loads of foods. So in a nutshell, if you'll pardon the pun, vegetables, fruits.
Yeah.
If you choose to eat meat and fish, little of it, but that too. And have that variety, because what that variety does also, it gives us fiber, and fiber is absolutely essential to our gut health, as well as helping with blood sugar. And when our gut's healthy and our blood sugar is regulated, then obviously the foods that we put into our bodies can work their magic through the gut, if the gut's healthy.
Well, when we think about gut health, I just wanted to pick you up on one thing that you said earlier. If we don't remember anything, if people don't remember anything else about this podcast, then imagine that serotonin, which is a happy hormone, is also released in the gut, And if our gut is not healthy because it's been piled with processed foods and sugars and too many fats and too many rich foods and all of that, then that serotonin is then compromised. So therefore our mood is compromised. And when we look at it in simple terms like that, when we look at that one area, we kind of go, and there we have it. You can't be as happy with all of that food, although you think you're being happy because you're eating a pizza or you're eating a big fat curry or you're eating a big whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had a curry last night and I insisted, so it was a homemade curry firstly, and then I insisted that we had some greens on it. I had to have green beans and sugar snaps on there because for me, it didn't. Oh, and actually, it was cauliflower rice. It wasn't even rice. It was cauliflower rice we had with it. So then I looked at the plate. I was like, a really lovely homemade korma, cauliflower rice. There was only a third of the plate was meat and sauce. The other 2/3 were vegetables. I was like, that's not a bad. Oh, we did have naan bread. Sorry, we had naan bread. But it was a Sunday night. Do you know what I mean? It was a Sunday, and
we get a bit hung up on feeling guilty when we have something that we feel we shouldn't have, and I personally don't think that's always helpful. I think what's more important is that we enjoy what we have. And I'm very much an 80-20% person. I was very strict after I'd had my treatment. I was very strict on. I gave up dairy, for instance. I made sure I didn't have any dairy at all, and everything. I checked the ingredients and everything. And now I'm much more. I've got much more faith in my body in terms of if I have a little bit of something that's not okay, my body will deal with it. It's all right. It's what else I have, and So, for instance, if you have a naan bread, okay, that's a carb, which carbs are particularly refined carbs are sugars. However, if you've got a load of greens on there as well, then you're having all that fiber, and that fiber will offset some of that stuff that you've got in your naan bread. And it's about proportion that's important as well. So when I said eat real food, mainly plants, and with a little meat and fish or whatever, if you so desire, then that's what I mean by proportions. And when we eat a rainbow, if we look at our plate and there's a rainbow on it, then if it really is a rainbow, then we should have as much of all the different colours, and that means there will be more veg on there. So it's about the amount we have. We certainly very, very traditional British plate would be mainly carbs, and so it's redressing that balance. So it isn't about giving up carbs totally, unless you choose to. But that's not what's important. What's important is if we reduce the amount of carbs and we have a load of veg instead. You said you had cauliflower rice instead of rice. Well, then you're already having loads and loads of fiber and the goodness that cauliflower brings and greens bring and all of that. It's about the goodness that you put in there. And so proportion's really important as well. And that can help, I think, for people who then decide, I've got to give up this. I can't have that anymore. And I'm not. That's quite stressful.
It's too much, isn't it?
It's too much. It really is too much. So cutting down, changing proportions is much more helpful and more sustainable.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is the compound effect. Little changes, baby steps, which lead to bigger changes. And I always say to people, we don't want to overwhelm the mind, do we? Because it just becomes completely overwhelmed. And then what we do is we then shut down and we don't do anything. And then we end up in that place where people go, why can I never make a decision? Why do I always procrastinate? Why do I always get stuck? And I'm like, you're just overwhelming the mind. So then the mind goes, and it'll just completely shut down. And it's the same with food, isn't it? If you're trying to change, then this changes.
This is why diets don't work, when people go, right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to cut out that and I'm going to do this and it's not sustainable because it's too much, as you say, for the mind. And so then what we do is we beat ourselves up for doing something wrong or not getting it right. And of course, then we feel bad, and then we self-sabotage and we go and eat a chocolate cake or whatever it might be. So yeah, absolutely, baby steps. It's little changes that then can become a habit.
Yeah.
And once we do that, then it's second nature. It's not hard. And in fact, it can be easy and enjoyable.
Yeah. Is it 30 to 40 days of doing something consistently before it becomes a habit?
Yeah, they say so, something like that. You know, it's which ties in with the 6 week habit window thing. Yeah. So, you know, don't try and do too much in that 6 weeks. Just do little things, because after all, if you're looking long term, you know, that's the other thing. When we go on a diet, we think, right, well, within a month or 2 months, I want to be this thin, or I want to do this. And why are you looking at a couple of months? Why are you not looking at the rest of your life?
Yeah.
You know, what do you want in 10 years' time?
Yeah, I wonder if there's something in there around diet fads, and it almost feels like from society and from media, we have been trained that diet fads work because we can lose a lot of weight very quickly. But now what we're trying to do is re-educate people into, no, let's go for the longer term. Let's go for lifetime goals here. These are lifetime changes that will serve you well now, but also in 10, 15 years time.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, I don't anymore, but when I first started doing this, I would have people come to me saying, I just want to lose weight.
Yeah.
And I would say, if that's really all you want, then go to Weight Watchers or one of those things. However, you know, using the NLP and, you know, well, why is that important to you? What do you want long term? And getting them to link what they want with their own health and what they want to be doing. You know, how fit and healthy do you want to be in 10 years' time? Who do you want to be with? You know, are you looking at having the energy to be with your grandchildren in 10 years' time or whatever? You know, that's what's really important to you, not losing a stone in weight. If you can connect to that, then you're setting an intention to take care of your well-being. And then the weight loss thing just becomes part of that. And when you start eating healthily and you make small changes, then, you know, the weight becomes a kind of an incidental, you know, sort of side thing that happens.
It's like a bonus prize, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, bonus prize.
It's really interesting because I was watching, and I don't engage with this guy a lot, but for some reason I watched a video of him yesterday of the body coach, and a little video popped up on my social media timeline, and I listened to it, and it was really interesting because basically what he was saying was, I don't do what I do for the way that I look. I honestly don't. I do what I do because of my mental health. And he was really, really clear about it and really quite transparent. And I was like, wow, you've blown my mind today, because he has made an absolute direct link there and literally said, I don't do all of this exercise for the way that I look. It's not what it's about. This is the way I look is incidental. It's like a bonus ball. But he says, I do it for my mental health. And there are points, if you look back at his journey over the last year, there are points where he's really struggled. And he was one of those that stepped up and went, right, we're going to go live every morning. We're going to do. But there was points towards the latter end of the year where you could see that he was starting to hit brick walls. And I was like, yeah, nobody's invincible. Nobody at all. No, you're quite right. And for him, he's tapped into his core values, you know, what's really important to him. And when we do that, then it's easier to make those changes. Yeah. Core values are so important. So a really simple question. And again, this is to help people get something from this and hopefully start to make their own changes. What would somebody start with good nutrition in terms of just like little simple changes? Where would you be saying, maybe try this, maybe try that? What would you be doing?
Obviously, it depends on where they are. So it may be to you know, I'm a big one for replacing something. So rather than cutting something out, it's what do you replace it with? So, you know, and again, it's just a small thing. So it may be for, you know, if I can give a few sort of examples, it might be if someone feels, well, yeah, actually I'm eating too much sugar. And it might be that they're snacking on things. Well, maybe, replacing one of those snacks, sugary snacks, with a piece of fruit or a handful of nuts or something like that, something really small. Don't try and do it, or don't cut out the whole of sugar, just change one of those snack times and replace it with something else. Or it may be that when you go shopping, you choose not to buy those, you buy something else instead, because if it's not around, like you said, you know what's in your cupboard. Well, if you don't buy it, it's not going to be in your cupboard. So it might be not about what you're choosing to eat, it might be what you're choosing to buy. Just one of the things, just replace it with something that you know is going to nourish your body, rather than do something unhealthy for it. So that would be a suggestion. It might be for people that say, well, I don't eat much veg. Well, you know what about thinking of adding one new veg to your diet, and trying it several meals a week, buying something that maybe you've not used a great deal, because you think, well, you look at it and you think, I'm not sure what I do with that. Well, how about having a bit of fun and finding out, and trying different ways of cooking it and eating it. Just one, add one veg. If you did that every month, then at the end of a year, you've got 12 new vegetables that you've got in your repertoire that you now can confidently go to the supermarket or wherever you buy your veg and just say, yeah, I'm going to have some fennel this week, or whatever. And very often people are afraid to try something new. And so what if you don't like it? Well, try something else, rather than putting yourself under pressure, and get the family involved. If you've got children, get them doing the research for you, and find a new recipe. Find a different way of eating something that you eat, spaghetti bolognese. Find a different way of eating it to incorporate either more veg, or replacing the meat with something else, or having carrot spaghetti instead of carb spaghetti, if that's what you want to do. It doesn't matter. Something simple, and just stick with that for a while. Let that become a habit.
I made a massive spag bol last week, and actually what I did with it was I tried to, because we're always looking at ways of eating more healthy, I'm sure that I did like a 50-50 split between the meat and the veg. I added more and more veg, so I added more onions, more peppers. I think I put courgette into the one last week. And interestingly, when I serve it, I never serve it on pasta, because we don't eat pasta in the house. I would only ever serve it on like broccoli and green beans and sugar snaps and stuff like that, because that's now how we eat. And in terms of bread, we eat bread once or twice a week in this house, usually at a weekend. What I would add to everything you've just said, which was brilliant advice, is remember that all of these tips and hacks, only certain things work for certain people.
Absolutely.
And if just because something hasn't worked, don't dismiss it, go on to something else. So when you were talking, then I was thinking, I don't know, if you want something sweet, then maybe allow yourself something sweet at the weekend. So you have 5 days where you don't do anything, and then a weekend, because again, it kind of tricks the mind into going, what we never ever do with the mind is say no. We never say no to the mind, because the mind just goes ballistic and fights back against it. What I always do is I always go, later. We'll do it later. We'll have it later. We'll have it at a weekend. Do you know what I mean? Because if I said to myself now, right, I'm never eating chocolate again, my mind would go ballistic. I could do it for Lent. I could do it for 6 weeks, because at the end of 6 weeks, my mind goes, okay, so you can have the tradition there is usually to sit in bed on Easter Sunday and eat a massive fruit and nut Easter egg. Interestingly, I haven't done it this year, so I'm not sure if I can allow myself that treat on Easter Sunday. Ooh, that's interesting.
Yes, it is interesting. You're absolutely right, and it's the equivalent. I use this a lot with clients. It's the equivalent of a toddler. The mind, the chimp brain. The primitive brain is what's at work here, and that's like a toddler. And what happens if we say no to a toddler? It just throws itself on the floor, screams. There's snot everywhere. There's all the tears and all that sort of thing. This is what the mind does when you say no. I'm never going to have that again. It's like, no, don't do that. You're right. I like that. I like the later thing, well, not right now. However, yeah, or I might have it. So yes, and that again is why I'm using the 80-20, 80%, 20% thing. But of course I don't measure percentages. I just know that I have a little of what isn't going to nourish my body now and again. And that's okay, because if I'm having good nourishment most of the time, that's what's serving me well.
Yeah, we never want to say never to a piece of cheesecake or a muffin or whatever your vice is. See, bad language. What the treats? I can't even change it in my head. I have one more question for you before I let you go. Just to finish off, what would be your, if you wanted people to take away one thing from this whole recording, what would it be? Your number one in terms of nutrition guidance?
I would say set the intention, first of all. Set the intention to nourish your body. Just say to yourself, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to really look after my body. I'm going to love myself enough to nourish my body. And, that will do that often enough. Remind yourself every morning, just say, today I'm going to nourish my body.
Yeah.
And it already sets your mind working in a way that will help you to choose the right things and to pick up that vegetable for the first time, or to replace a sugary snack with something else. And what that does, when we do that gradually, what that does is it allows us to be more in tune with our body, and the body will remind us of what we need to do. And it's amazing how our tastes change when we do that. So we actually stop. If you've ever given up sugar in tea and coffee, and then you go back to having a coffee with sugar in, it tastes disgusting because your tastes have changed. And so that can move us away from the craving, the things that aren't helpful. And we can actually, we start to crave the good stuff. We start to seek out the things that our bodies need. So set the intention, be self-compassionate, and set the intention, I'm worth this. I am absolutely worth this. I'm going to love myself enough to nourish my body today. Just do it a day at a time.
Yeah.
And then that will give you the right mindset in order to then look at the changes that are right for you. And it is individual, and it is different for everyone. And so they can then choose whether it's to eat more veg, or to cut out sugar, or to pick the right fats, good fats. Our bodies do need fats. So, the whole low fat thing, forget that. We do need fats. Yeah. So to try the different things that we need to do, but the intention comes first.
I love that on several levels. I love it because it feels like it's tapping into the unconscious mind. If it's okay, I'm going to add on to that, because I love that. So today, just to clarify, setting an intention is waking up every day and saying, today I will nourish my body. That is your intention. They are the words that you're saying right there. I want to add to that and say, if it doesn't happen on that first day, or you don't see significant changes, do not give up. I want you to set that intention for like 2 weeks, and I just allow it to gently sink into the unconscious mind, and you will start to make changes.
Oh, absolutely, because that chimp brain, that toddler, will try and sabotage it. It's what's been there for so long. So of course it's going to take some training to do. You're absolutely right. Yeah, thanks for adding that, because that is really important. Don't beat yourself up. Instead, do the opposite. Reward yourself when it does go right. When it does happen, go, yeah, this is great. I'm really proud of myself here. Rather than beating yourself up, concentrate on the things that go right. Absolutely. It's all about gentleness. Yes. We've got to stop this. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, look at me, I smashed it today. And all the language around that is unhelpful. Go for gentleness, go for kindness, go for self-compassion. And it will work. Just trust in the process.
Absolutely. Alison, thank you so much for your time today. That is, I'm sure that people will find that absolutely fascinating in terms of the information that's in that podcast there, and just little tips and hacks into people being able to understand what nutrition is, but also then start to change it very, very slightly. So thank you for being here, and thank you for showing up, turning up, and bringing it.
You're very welcome. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, it's been great. I'd love to do something further in the future. I'm sure there's other areas that we can tap into to help people become their very best version. So let's do that.
Yes, let's do it anytime. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much for listening to another one of our recordings of Invincible You. If we're not covering subjects that you want us to cover, then please let us know, and we will do our damnedest to cover subjects that you want us to know. Invincible You is all about becoming your very, very best version, okay? Thank you to Home Radio for the production side of this. Remember, you can listen to Home Radio on, let's see if I can get this right, it's a DAB digital radio platform. You can get it on Alexa by shouting, "Enable Alexa." If you're listening to this on loudspeaker now, I might have sent your Alexa crazy. And you can, there's also two apps. There's an iOS and an Android app. Yes, I did it. So thank you for listening to that. If you think it's going to be helpful to other people, then please pass it on. And I will see you next week with another version. Take care. Be kind to yourself and be kind to everybody around you. Thanks again, Alison.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.